Hello, everybody, and welcome into today's episode of Around the Slice. I am here today for the Bills Titans preview show. So, of course, like every week, let's get right into it. So, the Buffalo Bills are hosting the Tennessee Titans. Actually, let me look right now who's home. I should probably have. It doesn't matter. Either way. Bills versus Titans at 1 o'clock p.m. Sunday, October 20th. It will be broadcast on CBS, so that's how you can watch it and stream it or whatever you like. So let's get into the actual preview today. Let's get into my keys to victory, players of the game predictions, my underdog fantasy player props, and of course my final score predictions, winner and score prediction. So my three keys for the Bills offense, three keys that the Bills offense that will lead them to victory. Of course, as always, not in order. I know this is like foreign to the Bills. I'm not afraid to admit that about my own team. Get creative with running plays. There have been so many times this season where whether it's been James Cook, Ray Davis, or Ty Johnson, where it's just run up the middle for 3 or 4 yards. Even if it's a big chunk, run up the middle, run up the middle, run up the middle. And I'm pretty sick of it. One, it gets old and boring. And two, teams can just stack the box and instead of having light boxes, have heavy boxes against you because you don't get creative with running plays. Throw some wrinkles in there. Continue the pre-snap motion. Get Josh on the move. Have design QB runs and design QB run plays for Josh Allen. But most importantly, throw in a jet sweep in there. Do a pitch behind the line. Do a crack toss behind the line. Something to get the defenders on the move instead of just a boring same old run up the middle. Even if it's a big chunk gain, like it gets really, really old and boring, and defenses it can like stack the box heavily against you, literally and figuratively, literal heavy boxes because all you do is run out the middle. Like Joe Brady, get creative, throw some jet sweeps in there, throw some crack toss plays in there, throw some pitches in there behind your line, make guys create after the catch when you throw it to them behind the line. And I think James Cook will be key in this game because of that. And one of my underdog fantasy player props, quick little foreshadow teaser here. It is heavily tied to James Cook. So I would love to see Joe Brady get more creative. I don't think Joe Brady's been nearly as creative enough this year, especially with the running game. He's been fine through the passing game. I think that's been more Josh Allen executing than anything. But for the running game, like I'm tired of seeing those boring old runs up the middle. Like get creative, run outside the tackles instead of in between the tackles every freaking time. Get their defense on the move, if you will. Like I would love to see more than one multiple jet sweeps out with Curtis Samuel. Like they haven't even tried that. I would love to see pitches with James Cook because that's arguably his best attribute. I know he has inconsistent hands a lot of the times, more often, excuse me, than we would like. But like, I'm tired of seeing the same damn runs up the middle. I'm sorry to sound harsh, but like, and I'm not over exaggerating. Like I'm sick of it. So, and you're not going to be one. It gets old, and two, you're not going to be able to run up the middle against this defense. Like T'Vondre Sweat has a knee injury as a nose tackle. He is a big boy. He is huge. He just eats up blockers and eats up running backs. Like if he double teamed, and he's like an insane athlete for his size. Like he's like 340 pounds, 345, 340 at the very least. So you're and then you have Jeffrey Simmons next to him. I'm sorry, but you're not running on that. So yes, running up the middle is boring, but number two, out of necessity, you need to change it up because you won't be able to run up the middle on T'Vondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons. I mean, they're scary. It's scary how athletic they are for their size, and they will just eat up blockers, especially T'Vondre Sweat. I mean, he's just a pillar in the middle of that defense. He has a slight knee injury right now, and he popped up on the practice report, and he didn't play practice for the Titans yesterday. Preface this with yesterday being Thursday, October 17th, but like, switch it up because of that. So I would love to see Joe Brady get more creative with the run game outside of just Josh Allen. And then number two, attack the middle of the field with your offense. I think slot presence will be key in this game. I think your base 11, I do think Amari Cooper will play because he's already at Buffalo. He's already practiced for 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday respectively, and with the walkthrough, and then Thursday had an actual practice yesterday respectively. I think you scrap the whole 12 personnel 2 tight end thing because Joe Brady, you've had since April to implement it, May really, since voluntary OTAs, and then mandatory minicamp in June, and then training camp in August and preseason respectively. You bottom line is you've had since April to implement this, and it's been a disaster and a mess when they're Kincaid and Knox are on the field together. So I would just scrap the whole 12 personnel thing. I didn't like it going in. I didn't like it all the way to last year. Oh, we're gonna be heavy 12 personnel and 2 tight ends on the field. It's gonna be great with Kincaid and Knox. I don't like it at all, really. I love going 11 personnel, base 11 personnel, more traditional style offense, where obviously Josh Allen QB or James Cook at running back, which tidbit here, I think he will be back into the fold, if you will, Sunday. Your 5 line starters, we know who they are from left to right. And then your tight end is Dalton Kincaid. And then this is where the base 11 personnel packages comes in. Your traditional 3 wide receiver set of Khalil Shakir in the slot, Amari Cooper on the outside, and then I'm gonna pick Keon Coleman outside over Curtis Samuel. If I was offensive coordinator, say this is like a made up thing, but say Aiden Weingartner's offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills, that's the base personnel I'll go with. That's who I would have on the field at all times. And then you throw in maybe Dawson Knox. I would just never, or maybe even very rarely, in certain occasions, have Kincaid and Knox in the field together. So I say scrap the whole 12 personnel 2 tight end thing. It's been a disaster, kind of, even last year. And obviously, you haven't been able to get it right. So that would be my base 11 personnel look. But attack the middle of the field with attack the middle of the field with Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid. I don't know if Khalil Shakir will be fully recovered from that high ankle sprain. I'd assume he would be at like 80 to 85% by now. He says he's getting better every day. He only played 38% of offensive snaps this past game last week against 4 days ago. Not last week, but you get the point. Last game. This past game against the Jets in MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. The 38% of offensive snaps is clearly not right. I just don't really understand why he was out there. If it were me, like this is the Titans, I would also hold him out for this game as well. But since he was out there against the Jets, they're probably going to force him out there. I understand that he's getting better, but you shouldn't need a lot of pieces, barely any pieces, honestly, to beat the Tennessee Titans. As you'll see in my little teaser here, score prediction towards the end of the episode later on, but I just wouldn't have him out there. But attack the middle of the field. I'm mainly looking at Dalton Kincaid to rise up here because the 2 linebackers that will be on Dalton Kincaid are middle linebacker Ernest Jones, and then weak side linebacker, they have Kenneth Murray. Kenneth Murray hasn't lived up to his draft status of a former first-round pick. His 5th-year option was declined by the Chargers, and then he left. Now he signed a modest deal with the Titans. And then 2, I do believe that the Titans the Titans downright stole Ernest Jones from the Rams. Like, the Rams are just desperate to move on. I don't know why, because he's a decent linebacker. He's decent in coverage. But the thing with Kenneth Murray, so they gave a 6th-round pick to the LA Rams, Los Angeles Rams, whatever you want to call them. The thing is, though, Kenneth Murray and Ernest Jones are more like downhill tackling players rather than coverage. They're both kind of like Dorian Williams of that ilk, of that style of player. They're more downhill thumpers than coverage linebackers. So I think Dalton Kincaid, in terms of size, in terms of raw talent, in terms of taking advantage of how Ernest Jones and Kenneth Murray respectively play the game, I think the middle of the field, intermediate level of the field will be key. And this also falls on Joe Brady because pretty much every recap show I've said, Dalton Kincaid, it feels like he's getting involved in the offense more and more as the weeks go on here, as the games go on, specifically in that respective manner. I haven't really loved, for the most part, even liked or what have you, and Joe Brady's usage of Dalton Kincaid this season. What I mean by that is, instead of using him downfield in the intermediate part of the field, like he's going to have to be in the middle part of the field, specifically have to be against the Titans on Sunday. He's been giving them screens. He's been giving them short dump-off passes. And he's trusted Dalton Kincaid to make guys miss and run after catch at a high level, which, don't get me wrong, I appreciate Dalton Kincaid for being able to do that, but he was drafted to be utilized in the middle part of the field. And I think this is where he really gets going against like more downhill thumper type linebackers instead of real pure coverage guys, with Ernest Jones at middle linebacker and Kenneth Murray at weak side linebacker at the other spot, respectively. So I think I would hold out Khalil Shakir. They'll probably force him to play again. So Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakir, and that will have to be a huge presence. And I think Joe Brady is really gonna ramp up his usage. I think he needs 5 to 8 receptions in this game, at least 5, 6 to 8, I would say, somewhere around there. So that's just how I would attack in the middle of the field personally, because you're also not going to be able to go deep on this defense. And that leads into my next point. Wide receivers need to get separation, whether it's near the line of scrimmage, middle of the field, down the field. First of all, I don't think you're going to be able to have much downfield success in this game. One, because that's not what the Buffalo Bills are this year. That's not what Josh Allen and this Bills offense are this year with our receivers that we have. And two, you have a lot of guys. You have a few guys now that are pretty much middle of the field monsters in Khalil Shakir, Amari Cooper, Dalton Kincaid, if he's used properly, like I just talked about with my last key and point here, respectively. But you're not going to be able to go deep. I really, really, honestly, I'm kind of in love with the secondary of the Tennessee Titans. I think that's their one saving grace. I'm not saying it's going to lead them to win, not even close. But I love their secondary with an underrated safety duo in Amani Hooker at one safety spot and Quandre Diggs at the strong safety spot, and then I really like nickelback / slot corner, whatever you want to call it, whatever term they use these days. Roger McCreary, and then outside corners, L'Jarius Sneed, which it's going to look like he's going to play through a decent quad injury. And then the other corner spot was supposed to be Chidobe Uzie, but he suffered a serious injury in training camp / preseason. I do know for a fact, so he's on IR. He's been eligible to come off, but he hasn't played all this year. So it's going to be Darrell Baker, and then maybe they rotate Jarvis Brownlee and move him from the slot to the outside. Either way, I think one half of the field will be shut down by L'Jarius Sneed, but the other half, I think Keon Coleman can take advantage of Darrell Baker / Jarvis Brownlee, whoever the hell it is. But wide receivers have to separate. We can't be having the defensive backs right on the hip, and we can't be saying the defensive backs might as well run the routes for the Bills, even if Amari Cooper doesn't play. So Amari Cooper, I said this in my instant reaction. It was only a quick 11-minute instant reaction. I kind of dove into this a bit, but I wanted to dive into it even more here. Amari Cooper, statistically, is getting the most yards of separation per route run this year in the NFL, according to the analytics gurus, and just look at the deeper metrics I have been over the last week or so, a few days, give or take, since we traded for him. And that's key because the only guy that can separate is really on this team, Khalil Shakir. Dalton Kincaid hasn't been able to do it, which is very surprising. He was an elite separator last year, maybe even great at the very least. But Keon Coleman can't separate. Mac Hollins, he should only be on there in special teams as an elite special teamer. I'll give him that. And then obvious running downs. I just think he's kind of a Gabe Davis, kind of disappointing when he is in there. Needless to say, you're not going to have much success deep. But when you do go deep on that one side of the field against Darrell Baker opposite, or Jarvis Brownlee / Jarvis Brownlee opposite L'Jarius Sneed, which will be shut down that other side of the field, these outside receivers need to get separation. And I have full confidence that Amari Cooper can do that at elite level. But Keon Coleman, big yikes on that. So he needs to learn to separate quick. I don't think this is a game where you do go deep. And when you do go deep, you would love to have receivers that can actually separate. Keon Coleman, looking at you specifically, buddy. So that's just my thoughts on the whole situation. But like I said, middle of the field, get Kincaid going. And I wouldn't really force Shakir into a big role. I wouldn't even have him play. So I think Dalton Kincaid will be the most important in this game, though. And then 3 keys for the Bills defense. I feel like I say this way too often every single week, but tackle. Other than a few physical tacklers on this team, Rasul Douglas missed way too many tackles last week, and he's usually a surefire tackler, but I don't have any qualms with him in tackling. So other than Christian Benford, Rasul Douglas, and Taron Johnson, those 3 secondary players, everyone misses tackles. Literally everybody on this team, this whole defense, other than those few select players specifically, misses tackles. I know Terrell Barron's a superstar linebacker. He misses too many tackles. Dorian Williams, sometimes he's flying around the ball, plays too fast. The Tremaine Edmonds syndrome, if you will. he misses tackles. Everyone misses tackles, and you're going against a running back in Tony Pollard, who people think about him as a downhill thumper, which that's his best attribute, goal line back, whatever, but also his receiving chops out of the backfield are very underrated. And he's just going to get more and more volume this game. I think he's going to get a ton of volume this game because Tajay Spears, their dynamic little scat back, maybe a little more than that out of the backfield, is going to be down for at least this week, probably the next 2 to 3 weeks with a pretty serious hamstring injury, I heard. I don't know if it's pretty serious, but a hamstring injury usually like 2 to 3 games. So Tony Pollard's going to get volume in the receiving and rushing game, and he's not a guy that will juke you out of your shoes, but you have to tackle. So that's my point on it. And then get constant pressure on this abysmal, and I mean this is abysmal Tennessee Titans, abysmal Titans offensive line here in Tennessee. Like, listen to this. Left tackle, J.C. Latham. He played right tackle his whole 4-year career at Alabama. I think it was 4 years, and they moved him to left tackle. It's been a pretty disappointing rookie season for him. He had a decent first couple of weeks, and then he's just on downhill from there. Left guard Peter Skoronski, they drafted him as a tackle. They moved him to guard last year, and his second year has arguably, actually not arguably, it has been worse than his rookie year, and he's just been disappointing in his second year. Center Lloyd Cushenberry, again, he hasn't lived up to that big contract that the Titans paid him prior away from the Broncos back in March in free agency this past offseason. Right guard, Dylan Radunes. He's played tackle, he's played guard, he's played center, and he's never really fit into any one spot specifically at a decent, even level. And then right tackle, this is a joke of a split rotation between Leroy Watson, never even heard of the guy, and then Nicholas Petit-Frere, which I liked his rookie season enough a couple years ago, but then he's just gone downhill from there out of Ohio State. So all of these guys, left to right, have been disappointing, whether there's been a disappointing rookie with Latham, disappointing second year with Skoronski, haven't lived up to the contract with Cushenberry, a joke of a right tackle position between Leroy Watson and Nicholas Petit-Frere. And then Dylan Radunes, he just hasn't been able to find a spot. He can play all 5 spots along the offensive line, but now he's sitting at right guard, which is probably out of position for him anyway. I think he's best suited at tackle. So I don't know. Like, every one of these guys has question marks, has been disappointing or just abysmal pretty much. So this Bills defensive line needs to get constant pressure. I don't expect that Oliver to play this game, unfortunately, but Greg Rousseau, man, wake up. You had 3 sacks week 1. You looked like you were one of the, honestly, defense player of the year candidates this year, and you've been totally invisible since. Like, let's keep it a buck here. AJ Epinesa and Dwan Smoot have made way more impact plays than you, Greg Rousseau. So I need this pressure to be more consistent. And if you want it to be more consistent, maybe you do, God, heaven forbid, Bobby Babbitt or Sean McDermott send the blitz, or maybe you do have a couple defensive backs, because your defensive backs, Taron Johnson, Taylor Rapp, honestly, he's best suited in the line of scrimmage anyway, Rasul Douglas, Christian Benford. In terms of defensive backs blitzing, there's not many players better in the league that can do that in the secondary. So send the blitz, heaven forbid. I know you don't do that, but this defensive line pressure, specifically pass rush, whatever you want to call it in tournament these days, have been very, very disappointing. Speaking of the blitz, make in-game adjustments if you need to. If Tony Pollard starts running all over you, which unfortunately I think he will, I know this is like, again, foreign to the Bills, stack the box. Like, they play light boxes against Derrick Henry when everyone knew that's what the Ravens were going to do, pound Derrick Henry down any team's throat, specifically the Bills. Bills' run defense is garbage, so if you need to stack the box and go heavy boxes as opposed to much lighter boxes, do it. If you need to send the blitz more than you want to, do it. Because Will Levis looks worse than a deer in the headlights, like not even that level. He looks worse than a deer in the headlights when you send the blitz. Do it. I don't like. They barely ever send the blitz, and I know that this drives me crazy. The Bills refuse. They refuse to leave nickel defense, and when they do, in the rare occasion that it happens 2 or 3 times a game, if that, They go to dime defense and bring on a third linebacker on the field or an extra defensive back or a third safety. None of that crap. If you got to leave nickel defense to blitz, you do. If you got to leave nickel defense to have much heavier boxes or slightly heavier boxes because it's not much of a feat with lighter boxes, then you do. Make in-game adjustments. So I'm sorry to go on my little mini rant there, but like the Bills defense is like they've been struggling for years. Like the Bills defense is never going to stop the run at a high level, not even close really. At best, they're middle of the pack. At worst, they're usually like bottom 5, if not the worst. Like they're the number 26 ranked one, and by now I think it's the number 31st defense. That's bottom 5, somewhere in there against Brees Hall after the Jets game. Run defense. The Bills defense is built to prevent big plays with their nickel defense. But like heaven forbid you switch it up with in-game adjustments if it's not working. That's what I would do personally. But what do I know? Players of the game predictions. Offense, Dalton Gate. Number 1, I wouldn't play Khalil Shakir, like I said 100 times here, but they're going to force him. I just don't think he'll be near 100%. Number 2, even if Amari Cooper does play, he's more of a downfield separation target. Number 3, Keon Coleman, same thing. Number 4, I know a lot of numbers here, but Dalton Kincaid, attack the middle of the field. And I think that's a necessity, and I think he needs to have 6 to 8 receptions at the minimum. Like, I wouldn't be opposed to him having double-digit receptions and then a few more double-digit targets as well. So, offensive player of the game prediction, Dalton Kincaid, attack middle of the field through and through. Defensive player of the game prediction, Rasul Douglas. If you send the blitz, Will Levis is for sure throwing a couple of interceptions. If you don't send the blitz, he probably will still throw a couple of interceptions. And Rasul Douglas is a ball hawk. I think he easily had his worst game as a Bill last week. He missed way too many tackles. He got way too grabby. He wasn't as physical as a tackler as he usually is. So I think he'll bounce back game in a big way. And he's more of a ball hawk than Christian Benford. So, yeah, I love Rasul Douglas in this game. 5 game predictions. Underdog fantasy player props. Give me James Cook over 0.5 touchdowns. That can be rushing or receiving. But if I were putting money on it, I would say it would be receiving more than anything. You know, I started this episode, first key to the game for the Bills. Now I'm turning to importance, just like the way I laid them out. And not in terms of priority, just the way I laid them out. Excuse me. I think it would be a receiving touchdown. Get creative with run plays. Maybe you just do like a jet sweep to James Cook, but more specifically, maybe it's just like not a screen, but like maybe he gets free in the end zone and you throw him the ball and it's a touchdown. Like I said, you won't be able to run up the middle. So I think you have to get this defensive line on the move. And Harold Landry is a great pass rusher, underrated because of injuries. And then Arden Key is a nice like second pass rusher for them who's developed nicely for them. But they're not run defenders at all. But get James Cook in the move. So give me James Cook over 0.5 touchdowns. And I think he could have like 2 receiving touchdowns this game, but give me at least 1. And then I'm going to be honest with you guys here. Underdog didn't really have many player prop options for this game. Prop options, that's a mouthful to say, for this game. So like I'm going to be honest. I made this up. So it's kind of my own prop, if you will. Don't give me Dalton Kincaid over 65.5 receiving yards. Like I said, I'm looking for 6 to 8 receptions at the very least, double-digit targets at the very least, and then I think you could have like 70 receptions. Dawson Knox is clearly the bigger red zone target, literally and figuratively, than him. So, yeah, I'm not worried about it. I don't think he'll get a touchdown, but like, give me 65 over 65.5 receiving yards. I don't know how much more than that I'll get, but I'm looking for like 75 to 80 receiving yards for Kincaid between all the receptions and targets he should get. Again, attack the middle of the field. Almost done here. Will Levis. Give me Will Levis over 0.5 interceptions. This is a sure thing I've ever seen. Like, Will Levis is a joke of a QB. I am sorry, but like, he can't run an NFL offense. It's a timing-based offense, and Will Levis is not a timing-based thrower. He's a chaos merchant, pretty much, and like, he's built like an action figure. Like, he's huge. He can move. He's built like Josh Allen, maybe a little smaller, but he's built like Josh Allen's built like an action figure, but like he can't play football to save his life. So this is sort of a thing I've ever seen. I'm smashing Will Levis over 0.5 interceptions. Tony Pollard over 63.5 rushing yards. I want them to go heavier boxes and leave nickel defense, but they won't. I want them to blitz, but they won't. But them being the Bills, we won't do that. So, like, if any running back, like, we've played some, like, if we see a running back on the schedule who's at least like above average or maybe even average sometimes, like if they're above average, they're going for 100 yards and a touchdown. It's just what it is. Like, but pure rushing, not even including receiving, 100 yards and a touchdown because our run defense is garbage. I keep saying it. I'm sorry. I know my own team though. Through, it just is. Tony Pollard, unfortunately, will smash over 63.5 rushing yards. And then this is more of a generalized. So those are my 5 underdog player props. More generalized prediction. I know this might sound bold because the pass rush and pressure has been very inconsistent this year and disappointing most of the time. But I do love how the Bills defense is set up to prevent big plays in their ball hawking defense. They go big play hunting, if you will. Bills defense gets six combined sacks and interceptions, whether that's an even split, 3 sacks and 3 interceptions on Will Levis, 4 and 2, either way, 2 and 4. I don't know, but give me Bills defense gets 6. Yes, you heard that right. Bills defense gets 6 combined sacks and interceptions. I think it's going to be a long day at the office for good old Will Levis. He's not good at football. And then Bills win the game 27-10. It might sound bold, but with all the big plays that the Bills defense is going to get, preventing big plays. First of all, I don't think like the wide receiver talent is good enough in Tennessee. Tyler Boyd's been nothing this year. Calvin Ridley's been nothing. Overpaid severely. DeAndre Hopkins, like, just trade him out of there. I feel bad for him. So give me the Bills winning 27-10. Projecting, whatever you want to call it. Excuse me. 5 inactive players versus the Titans. This one's a personal one. I have wide receiver Matt Collins as a healthy scratch because in theory you can elevate Tyrell Shavers from the practice squad and get the same amount of special teams acumen from him and get the same amount of run blocking ability from him. So I have Matt Collins as a healthy scratch, kind of switch it up and elevate Tyrell Shavers and have him active from the practice squad. Center Will Clapp. They obviously like Cedric Van Granger in that third center role. Unfortunately, defensive tackle Ed Oliver, I don't think he's returning at least one more week with the hamstring injury. And then linebackers Joe Andreessen and Eddie Ulafoshio, because the 4 linebackers ahead of them that are healthy are Terrell Bernard, Jordan Williams, Balin Spector, who they love apparently. I'm not in love with them, but they do. Brandon Bean, staff, Sean McDermott, Bobby Baggers, they all rave about him, and that Nicholas Morrow, which that's whatever. And then this is a personal one too. You know I'm DeMar Hamlin's biggest fan, but unfortunately I'm going to have him as a healthy scratch here. I think I think you start a veteran, whether you start Mike Edwards at safety opposite Taylor Rapp, or maybe elevate. What I would do is elevate Kareem Jackson from the practice squad for this game and see how it goes against a very weak Titans offense. So anyways, guys, that's it for today. That was the big Bills-Titans preview show. Once again, I have the Bills beating the Buffalo Bills beating the Tennessee Titans in a 17-point blowout, 27-10. You can follow me personally on Twitter at AYGurnet13. You can follow the show on Twitter at RunSlice. You can support this podcast by watching or listening to it on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcast. And please, I'm on the road to 50 subscribers. Help me get to the big 5-0. Thank you for supporting as always. I will see you on Monday. There's no path to the Titans winning here. But yeah, thank you for watching the preview show today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.